Alright guys, got a new patch coming out for TFT, so wanted to do a quick little rundown on all of the changes that are coming up in today's patch. Today being the day I upload this video, yeah, we'll go with that. Start off with getting some new little legends from, based on KDA. So take a look at this one. You gotta admit, this Feather Knight one's really good. You gotta like the Feather Knight one. Tail's not bad either, but the Feather Knight one, woo, top tier. Okay. System changes. They've made new improvements to the champion movement logic. I haven't seen what it looks like. They claim that it's going to improve starter fights, where the champion logic is probably at its worst, is right at the start of fights, trying to calculate where all the champions need to move. A lot of times they'll run into each other, take weird-ass routes around things. It should be better. The only exception seems to be if you have to move very far. It seems, from what I'm reading out of what's been told, the movement is going to be stutter step based, where basically it's going to recalculate movement after each step. So that way, like, you don't get as many collisions, weird movement around. You take a more direct route. I'm assuming that's what's happened here. I don't actually know that. Changes with Cultist. So, long story short, Cultist 6 is incredibly strong in the early game. So, they have toned down Galio at Cultist 6, give him a little less health to make him a little less explosive. Because it's pretty easy to get Cultist 6 in the early game, and win streak pretty hard off that to a free top 4. I don't know what you do from there, but it's a pretty easy top 4 with early Cultist 6. Other changes, Galio's base mana is he's starting at 75 rather than 50. The main reason for this is that it's a pretty common thing to do in the end game to have Cultist 3. The problem with Cultist 3 is that Galio kind of just gets mowed down before he can ult. So really you were just keeping him in so he could come in and get a nice little AoE stun. But this will allow him to get his ult off a little bit more, which does some pretty meaningful damage. Cultist 9 is getting some changes, so they're lowering the health and significantly lowering the AD, but in return, you are starting with anti-crowd control for 8 seconds. Relevant? Maybe? I think this AD nerf was probably too much. I think we're going to quickly realize that this probably is way too low. I like the idea of giving Galio at Cultist 9 something a little more useful than just beat things in face. Give him a little more utility to make him better. But this AD nerf I don't think this is going to work. This is a really significant AD nerf, and I'd look for this to change. But I like the idea of giving him crowd control immunity. It makes him feel better, I guess. Dazzler 2 is going from damage reduction 50 to 40. That's fine by me. Dazzler 2 is really easy to flex and pretty overpowering with Morgana in particular. Divine. This one's one I'm keeping an eye out for. So Divine has kind of been all over the place since War Week, where it's shown up a handful of times to be a decent build, and other times it's not a decent build. But they're giving it a 50% true damage and damage reduction buff. That is strong. But in return, they're taking the 2 Divine and reducing the duration from 4 to 3. I think I'm okay with this. I can get behind buffing. I think buffing the 50 might be a little too much. But if they're reducing 2 Divine, it might be okay. The biggest worry is, what does this do to Warwick? This is perpetually the question you ask about Divine. What does this do to Warwick? I think this is probably going to be okay. I don't think you're going to be able to get... It's hard to tell what Divine does, because the compositions with it don't make a lot of sense outside of just playing a bunch of Divine units. There's not a lot of, like... It never feels like there's a lot of synergy going on. You just have Divine procs, Warwick becomes invincible. So it's hard to tell what this is going to do. I suspect that Divine 2, Divine 6 might be a thing. I don't know. But I don't know what that looks like. We'll just have to wait and see. Hunter, the bonus damage across the board is getting a getting a 25 bonus damage nerf. That's fair. This Hunter Adept was probably the best build in the current patch, so this nerf is kind of expected. Fortune gets new loot tables at 10, 11, and 12 loss streaks. I have no idea how you live a game having 10, 11, and 12 loss streaks. But Riot Mort wanted to have some fun, so he had some fun and made some tables for it. So go get her. Keeper is getting... This is probably more a buff than a nerf. The shield duration is now scaling with the number of keepers you have. So at 2, it's still 8 seconds. At 4, it's 10. At 6, it's 14. At the same time, the 6 keeper is getting a shield reduction of 50. If they're increasing the duration, they probably did need to do this. Keeper 6 gets gigantic shields, and having it last 14 seconds is probably too long. But I still don't think this is going to make a really big dent in playing of Keeper. Keeper is like a super fringe composition people play in the mid game, and it just gets outscaled in the late game. So it's pretty uncommon to see it, and I don't really think this changes much. It might make like mid game Keeper 4 better. That's basically all I've got for this. Champion changes. So the big one is coming to Aphelios. So Aphelios effectively, I'm just going to put effectively, has been reworked. The way Aphelios was working before was his interaction with Rageblade basically was game breaking. The Turt attacks proccing Rageblade procs, getting him attack speed, getting him way too much attack speed, basically allowing him to hit the attack speed cap way sooner than he probably should be getting. So in response to that, they like destroyed his Manito. His Manito was like 180, I think. Yeah. So changes they're making here. Aphelios turrets no longer trigger on attack effects, which would include Rageblade, Static Shiv, and Hurricane, or grant him mana, but will continue to trigger on hit effects, so that means Sojins. So Sojin still procs off him, but Rageblade does not. Basically changes how you build him. You're going to see probably Sojin's Rage. You're probably still going to see Rageblade, but it'll be Sojin's Rageblade, because Rageblade is still actually a good item on Aphelios, even though the turrets don't proc off it. The turret attack speed still gets bonuses from Aphelios having higher attack speed. So you'll probably, I assume you'll still see Rageblade Sojins as kind of the optimal build on him. And I assume that for a third item, for best in slot, it'll be Quicksilver. That's kind of just my assumption on what he's going to look like. Also, because of this change, they don't have to keep his mana total at 180. So now he's going from 90, 180 to 40, 80. This is a low number. This is actually really strong, I think. The idea, from my understanding, when they created Aphelios, was they wanted him to be an item carrier for Ashe. This will do that. This might even make him a carry. I don't know if it's good enough to make the Moonlight builds really good, but I like the direction that's gone here. Also, his attack speed's getting increased, but whatever. Zed getting buffed. These are good buffs for Zed. These are really strong, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that at the end of the video. So his AD steal is getting boosted at 1 star and 2 star, and his bonus damage is getting significantly buffed at 1 star. Essentially, Z1 doesn't do anything, and Z2 is like negligible if you don't have a rapid fire cannon or anything that increases his attack speed. He really needs rapid fire cannon and Rageblade to be turned on. And usually you don't win a game playing Zed unless you get him to 3 star. So the hope is that this will allow you to stabilize better at 2 star while you're waiting to get your 3 star and get the top end of the build. It's still not like a top end build, and it probably won't be off this patch, but it's still pretty good. Kali getting attack speed boost. I'm not quite sure why this was necessary. It's not like Akali's not seeing play right now, but I think this is more about the fact that Ninja is not seeing a lot of play right now. Katarina getting a huge damage boost at 1 star. This actually I don't think does anything. The big issue with Katarina is that she often dies before she ever ults, or she gets stunned out of her ult, and the level 1, like, she just dies whenever she goes for a level 1 ult. Like, she can't do anything. So, I don't think this changes much. It's still a lot of damage, though. So, if it does ult, it's going to wipe out everything in the area, just like Katarina normally does. But the problem being that she has so little health that she just dies. Callista, 3-star buff. Callista's actually a pretty good unit. I'm a little surprised to see this. Usually the bigger issue with Callista is getting from 2-star to 3-star, but when you do, if you have a Callista with a Hurricane, it kind of, and it's uncontested, usually just stomps over things. The only problem is that I find that she's really only good in Duelist. She's not really good in Cultist. So, yeah, that's that. She's a good unit, and I suspect that this is a pretty decent buff to Duelist if you decide you're going to go for Callista 3. Kennen. So I was shocked at this. Apparently Kennen only had 20 armor and 20 magic resist as a frontline unit. No wonder none of us played Kennen. Nope, I didn't even know this. Kennen was kind of awful. Like, he just never was good. But they're buffing his armor up to 30 and his MR up to 30, so hopefully he's a bit better. Like, this was so squishy. They also nerfed down his 3-star damage because his 3-star damage is out of control. Xin Zhao, rework. It's hard to describe what Xin Zhao is going to look like. So one of the problems that has often come up, they've been working on Xin Zhao for a while. He's always been an okay unit, but the idea was for him to be a carry, and he was just never a carry. The only real carry in Warlord has always been Katarina. But now we're getting an interesting change on him. So it used to be his ult, he'd challenge an enemy, and there was all sorts of damage buffs and reductions going on with the challenging effect. Now instead, he does the sweep, does 300% plus his AD, which that's a lot of damage at 1-star. That's actually like a ton of damage at 1-star. And gains 50, 60, 75 armor and magic resist for the rest of combat. This stacks. If he keeps ulting, he keeps stacking and gets super more tankier. Makes him probably pretty good with items like Bloodthirster, where he can, he'll reach a point where his armor and magic resistance is just too high for your opponent's carries to kill him. So this should make him better. They also changed him to a normal mana lock rather than waiting till there's no challenge units, because yeah. And his starting mana total goes from 0-30 to 40-80. Decent number. It's fair for what he does. Oh, and his ability can out-crit. This is an interesting carry because it's more a carry in line of the fact that he'll be unkillable. We haven't really had a lot of those carries in a while, if ever. I guess like Sett or Sett 2 Zed builds maybe count. What's that? It's interesting. I don't know where he'll land. He's probably a good frontline unit, but I just don't know what he does. He's probably also a lot better in Duelist now. Like, a lot better. Where if he survives long enough into the fight, because of the Duelist procs, he's going to attack a lot, build up a lot of mana, get this armor up. He's probably going to be significantly better in Duelist. Tier 4 changes. Whole bunch of changes in Tier 4. We'll take it one at a time. We're going to start with Ahri. So, Ahri has the GP problem, where Ahri ults and the entire field is leveled. Everything dies. Yay. Not fun to play against, kind of boring to play with. Well, I shouldn't say boring, amusing to play with. But it's kind of like brain dead. Just like, put all your units around Ahri so Ahri can never get attacked. Let Ahri ult and kill everything. Yay. So, they're making a change. Spirit Bomb is now a channeled ability that can be interrupted. When it's interrupted, Ahri will release the orb early, reducing the size and the impact area. So now, when you kill Ahri, and she's charging a Spirit Bomb, while to go into GA state, so now just launch it, and it'll probably hit like maybe a 1 to 2 area radius. That's a big change. So now she's not going to wipe the battlefield when she gets stunned. I'm really happy with this change. And to go along with it, they're also buffing back up the 1 and 2-star variants, which I think is fine to do given this change. It probably makes this even eat better. Like, this is actually probably going to be a buff because of the damage changes, but it's not going to be as obnoxious and as brain dead as it's been. You're going to have to actually play around with how you position so you don't get stun locked. Ashe is getting brought down a little bit in health and armor. The thing with this was that because Ashe was Elderwood, if Ashe didn't get attacked, like, she actually got pretty tanky. So if you didn't take her out early, you often made it difficult to take her out late. So this is supposed to, I assume, kind of bring that down a little bit, I think. Ashe will still be fine to play. There's nothing wrong here. But this is probably just to balance out how Elderwood functions with Ashe. Sejuani, this is the best change in this entire patch. Not even going to lie. This is easily the best change in this patch. Sejuani's total mana is going from 50-130 to 70-150. Sejuani often ults like 3 to 4 times in a fight. It's actually kind of ridiculous how long you get stunned over a duration of fight because of Sejuani. Thank God for this change. This probably brings it down to 2 to 3 rather than 3 to 4 times she ults in a fight. Like, this is a great change. Props. I love this change. Talon. So we're going to talk about Talon here, because Talon got probably the most interesting change on this entire patch. And that's including 2 champions that got basically reworked. So, the way Talon often works now is Talon jumps into the backline, bang, bang, bang. He ults on whatever he's hitting, and usually it's squishy enough to die. Then he jumps to whatever does the highest damage dealt. There are basically 2 situations for this. One, the opponent's AD has been actually hitting things and doing a ton of damage. In this case, he jumps to the AD, ults them, and kills them. And the fight's over. Like, there's nothing's going to happen the rest of the fight, because your opponent just lost their carry in a snap. And it's like, okay, I win, yay. The alternate situation is when your opponent's carry isn't doing anything. It's something like an Ahri that's just sitting back building ult charge, or they have a frontliner that has a Bramble Vest, and the frontliner is what ends up doing the most damage. In that case, Talon then jumps onto the 4 Vanguard frontliner, ults them, and does no damage, and then gets stuck on them. And then you lose, because your Talon didn't do anything in that fight. RIP. So, they're changing how Talon functions to, instead of going to highest damage dealt, to lowest armor. So, essentially, what this means is now he's going to jump. This probably actually does not mean he's going to jump to carries. This probably means he's going to drop to all the utility champions your opponents have. The Yumis, the Aurelia. Well, not so much the Aurelia. Aurelia is actually pretty tanky. The Xylans. What else? The Jannas. All of these, Morgana, all these like utility champions that have low armor, just provide some sort of utility during the battle, not a lot of damage. He's going to basically run through all of those before he finds the carry and hits the carry. This makes it very, 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 very less likely he gets stuck on tanks. That's one of the biggest issues with Talon. Talon often gets stuck on tanks and then can't do anything, because he is stuck whacking at a tank with rapier that does no damage at all. So this change, despite people, you're going to see a lot of contested thoughts on this change, that a lot of people think it's a nerf. I view it as a buff. This makes him far more consistent, like really consistent, and probably keeps Enlightened at the top of the tier charts because of how he works. That said, it also means you're going to have to position a little better, because you can't just position, oh, I'm just going to try to ult on the squishy and have him jump to an AD. Now you want to make sure that you're jumping on the AD first if you wanted to take out the AD first. So this is a big change to the way that you need to think when you play Enlightened. Warwick. So with the Divine Trait being buffed, they decided they wanted to nerf Warwick. Apparently there are more changes coming to Warwick on the next patch, but this is what we get for now. Basically, the fear duration for a 1-star and 2-star is cut in half, And the attack speed bonus is nerfed at 1 star and 2 star. A lot of people look at this and think Warwick's going to be crap now. The question is how that aligns with the divine changes that have been added. The divine changes are very, very strong here. There's really no denying that the divine changes are pretty good. The question comes up is, where does this land Warwick? Had they kept Warwick the same, Warwick would have been really good with the divine changes. But these nerfs are pretty strong. At the same time, there's a bug fix where his spellcast would fail if a hunter proc happened at the same time. So that's been fixed. Tier 5, Lilia. Lilia's starting mana goes from 75 125 to 80 120, so 1 less auto attack to alt. Lilia's not good. She's not in a good place. The reality, in my opinion, is that Cassiopeia does the same thing Lilia does, except does it better and has got better traits. I don't know really what to do with Lilia at this point. Lee Sin's 3-star Lee Sin's knockout punch hits an area around the primary target and knocks out all enemies directly hit regardless of their board positions. Lee Sin's going to knock out 3 to 4 units at a time now, if you get him to 3-star, which is probably what he should do, because a 3-star 5 cost should be laughably good. Like, hysterically good. Kane's Reaper targeting has been changed, so it makes more sense. He does weird things sometimes when he ults. Like, if he's ulting something and that unit moves while he's ulting them, he ults and misses and then walks back up and loses his ult chain, and it's really weird to watch. I'm assuming they've fixed that. This is a crits issue with Vayne. So if you have a spell that crits and it wouldn't crit with spell crits that were already critting, it's a weird situation where you have spell crits on crits. And that's about it. So one thing to look out for on upcoming patches. So the big thing is that Enlightened is still going to be one of the better compositions in the game. They say Talon was nerfed. I do not view this as a nerf. I view it as probably more likely a buff. Hunter got brought down a little bit, probably a good change. There's a certain expectation that Ninja is going to be a good bit better with the changes to Zed. There's more Zed carry ninjas was already actually kind of a build, so we might see more of that. And we'll have to wait and see where Divine lands. I'm not quite sure where exactly Divine is going to land on this patch. Otherwise, I don't really expect it to be that much different from the current patch we're on. What we're going to watch out for is on the next patch, 1024. It sounds like there are some significant changes coming on that patch, particularly with the shops. It looks like the shops at level 7 are going to have a significant reduction in the amount of 4 costs you see. And straight up, you will not find a 4 cost chosen at level 7 shop. That hopefully will change the game up to instead of what it is now, where you get to 4-1, 4-2, and you sell your chosen and you roll down all your gold at level 7 and pray you find a 4 cost chosen. Yay. That's all I got for this patch. I'll post this up and I'll see you all around. Peace.